Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Go-To Food Podcast. Today we're joined by an absolute hero of mine, the wonderful Adam Byatt. Now, Adam, let me just read out some of the places you were chef patron at. Obviously, the Michelin star Trinity upstairs and outside, Charlie's Browns, and Bistro Union. But the one thing I want to start on is the genius trailblazing restaurant, which was Thyme. Do you ever consider bringing that out of the ashes? Will we see the wings flutter once more in time?
Well, Ben, thank you for the introduction. It's very kind.
Nice.
And it's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
No,
I don't think Thyme will ever come out of the ashes. No, I think it's served its place, and it served a great purpose at the time. But I think it's done. But the whole small plates thing and what I learned in that restaurant is definitely something that carries me now, and I love everything that was about that restaurant. But it was an absolute nightmare.
Really?
For those who don't know, sort of our listeners, can you just give a little potted history of what Thyme was, kind of what you were doing there?
I can, yeah. I opened that restaurant in 2001. It opened the day after the tragedy of 9/11, actually, which when you've just put your house on the line and bought a restaurant and watched that happen on TV was quite a scary moment. But anyway, we did do that and we did open it, and we and this is genuine, right? We didn't have enough money. We did it on such a shoestring. And I decided we'd do this sort of concept of just small plates. So just sort of starter-sized dishes, 20 different dishes, really small price point, really low price point. And I sort of made the assumption that I could just cook the food I was cooking at the Square in smaller portions with three of us in the kitchen for 50 covers without a reservation book. And I thought that would be absolutely fine.
That'd be fine, yeah.
Yeah, and of course, very quickly I learned that wasn't fine.
Right.
And it was an absolute nightmare. But listen, it put me on the map, and it allowed me to cut my teeth in restaurants and really sort of start that journey. And I don't regret a moment of it. It was amazing. It was heady, and it was pretty scary, and it was a rock and roll ride for those small few that were there.
Yeah,
will remember it very well. But it was great. Yeah.
Sorry, Freddie.
There you go.
Did it grate with you when people crediting Russell Norman, God rest his soul,
no,
with inventing small plates or bringing them to London?
No, there were people before that did that.
Okay,
actually.
right, yeah.
So I great with them, but not with Russell.
Okay, right.
Russell Norman's a hero.
Yeah.
Bless him.
Yeah.
But it was Thyme Out Restaurant of the Year, many other accolades. Can you just say a couple of your favourite plates when you look back? Things which were, crazy at the time, but just
Well, we did a foie gras and cod terrine. It's a confit cod in a foie gras pressed in a terrine with trumpet mushrooms and a Bagnols wine reduction. I don't know where that came from in 2001, but it did come from somewhere, and it was absolutely delicious. Matthew Thorpe was incredibly generous about it. We also used to do these sort of little oyster shots, so three little shot glasses in a little candle holder that I bought in IKEA. And we'd have a raw oyster in the bottom, and then a cucumber gazpacho, and then on the top like a warm classic champagne sauce in an issy gun on top. So when you drank it, it was kind of hot and cold, salty and fatty from the cream. Absolutely delicious, actually. Really, really beautiful. And an interpretation of that we probably still do today with a poached oyster, beautiful champagne velouté, and some cucumber, pickled cucumber or something. That the combination hasn't gone anywhere. But I think I was 26. Incredibly curious and really just bursting with so much energy to try and do something different and do my thing and find out who I was as a cook. Those are really great times, right? As a cook, you've got to go through those times, and it's so exciting to have that, to pick up the phone and just pick up the phone supply and just order whatever I wanted. I'm going to cook some rabbits today. I'm going to cook some veal cheeks today. I'm going to cook some whatever, that's so exciting as a young cook.
So you would change the menu every day, basically, or sometimes?
Way too often for any form of consistency or work-life balance, yeah.
Because what's Trinity do now? Is it sort of seasonal, like 3-4 changes a year, or...?
Well, I mean, you've just jumped 25 years. So,
no, don't worry. We're going to dive in that later.
No,
Adam, don't you worry about that.
But in terms of the context of where Trinity's at now, it is a whole different beast.
Yeah.
Trinity is a very well-established restaurant where the food is... there's a formula. There's a way we cook. I've managed to sort of get rid of all of that thing that a young chef has, where trying to discover the new thing or a new way of cooking this or a new ingredient for this, or there comes a moment in every chef's life when you sort of mature as a chef that actually, no, that's the way I'm going to cook a roast chicken. If I'm going to cook a piece of fish and it arrives in my kitchen, there's only one or two things that are going to happen to it. They're like that because I feel that's the best interpretation. And once you land in that place, actually, It's really nice.
Yeah.
It makes you feel really confident in what you do, very comfortable with what you do, and ultimately you then produce the best food, I think. So Trinity is a much more staid format, but there is lovely innovation there, but it is a great, solid neighbourhood restaurant. I think you recognise the food, but it's interesting at the same part.
Can I ask, sorry to jump in, Freddie?
Please.
2001, a very, very different time in terms of London restaurant scene. I think a lot of our listeners won't even be able to kind of gauge how, like, popular
were they
mid-market
born?
restaurant.
Yeah, they were born. Yeah.
So I came into restaurants in like 2006, 2007,
Yeah.
and I think on the cusp of that like mid-market boom in kind of like good restaurants.
Yeah.
What did it look like in 2001? What were you opening into?
Well, a very, very smaller market.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I opened in Clapham, so that was a very tiny market of restaurants at the time. The London restaurant scene was a sort of a relatively small number of Michelin-star restaurants in Central.
Yeah.
One or two dotted around wider parts of London, and a very low amount of good mid-market cookery. You know, where great young chefs had worked in Michelin-star restaurants like they do now,
Yeah.
and they open these fantastic establishments cooking their own version of food. No particular aspiration for accolades or anything like that. They just want to pack the house out,
Yeah.
make great food, which is what's been the fundamental change in London gastronomy. And it's great to see the restaurant scene in London so buzzy
It's
because
mad,
of that.
isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, but it was nothing like that then. So it was kind of, you were either opening to achieve a sort of a form of greatness, if you like, or you were opening to pack the house with a low end product, doing lots and lots of covers, sort of thing. So that was kind of where it was then, I think. But to be honest, it's a bit of a blur.
Yeah.
When I look back,
It was a huge success. You put Clapham on the map alongside obviously Chez Bruce, which is a place I'm sure you're a fan of.
Yeah.
But do you regret moving to the Hospital Club when you look back? Now, obviously, now we look back and the success is incredible from the other places. But at the time, just take us through how that fell apart.
Yeah,
for you.
interesting. I don't regret anything, actually, to be honest. I really don't. I think everything plays a part in the storybook of life. We made a decision at the time. It was a fantastic opportunity to get us from there to there. We were considerably undercapitalised at the time, even more so when we moved into the Hospital Club. And on paper, it should have done great, but there were things wrong fundamentally with the contracts, and that's all about learning, isn't it? You learn from those things. And yeah, it went wrong, but it was only it was a year of my life. For 35 years I've been cooking this year, and that was actually only, I think it was 14 months of my life. That's it, gone. But what I learned in that, I probably learned more in that 14 months than anything else. It teaches you great lessons. Don't regret any of it.
Well, we may see Thyme rise from the ashes, maybe, probably not, but hopefully, just for the big. Oh, I'm still clinging to it. But talking about rising from the ashes, obviously Le Gavroche, another great London restaurant, has closed. You've acquired some of their plates into Trinity, which look incredible. Just give us your memories of Le Gavroche. Did you eat there a lot? What were your favourite things to eat there if you did?
Okay, so truth be told, I'd never eaten at the Gavroche. When I left Claridge's as an apprentice, I did a number of stages across London, worked with some amazing, great chefs. And there were two restaurants that I wanted to work at. And one was the Square and one was the Gavroche. I was enamoured by the Gavroche. I just thought it was the epitome of French gastronomy. It's where that all formed in London. I held it in such high regard. I think it scared me to go there. Not in that way, not in a I couldn't do it way, but in a just felt so such a sense of presence from it. I went to the Square. Don't regret that at all. Obviously, that was an incredible experience. But I then went to the Gavroche a couple of years ago for dinner for the first time, three years ago. Obviously, I loved it. It sits, front and square and centre with what I love about food. But what's important in this is that Chef Michel, Chef Albert, Emily, Giselle, the family ate at Trinity a lot. And I remember the first time that Chef Michel came to Trinity, I did what every young chef would do at the time. This is probably 20 years or 15 years ago or something. I just showered them with tons of food, and I went to the table twice, and I sent them champagne, and did what every young chef would do. And I was, totally in awe of this, this chef coming to the restaurant. Then he came back, and you know what? Over time, I just realised that what they wanted was just really great, solid food, and they wanted a space to just, escape life, enjoy great hospitality. And over the years, the Roux family have eaten with Trinity a lot, and I feel incredibly privileged for that. But we just provided them with as much great hospitality as possible, but we never overdid the mark. And Chef Albert ate with us a lot, and to conclude, to wind that up really. But I was invited to the very last service at the Gavroche with a number of wonderful people, and it was an utter privilege and an honour to go there and have that last meal with them, and see the emotion in the room and the people in the room. And I think what I took away from that was actually just it's easy to think that classical French gastronomy should be modernised. It should be, should be fought against and modernised and made simpler and more efficient and quicker and all this stuff. But actually, something like the Gavroche, it just makes you realise that is where great harmony of flavour comes from, and it really gives you a sense of it just makes you believe in it again in a way.
What was the greatest dish on that closing night?
They cooked, the main course was a fillet of veal actually with a Perigord sauce and beautiful black truffles and some vegetables. It was just stunning. The headiness of those truffles, I'll probably never forget that. And it was served with a Mouton Rothschild 05, as you do.
Ugh,
and it just totally blew my mind.
Do you see a wave of like chefs coming up wanting to carry on with that tradition or kind of go back to that tradition?
I do actually, in the world that I live in, but perhaps that's just the sort of bubble that I'm in the restaurants that I own and the chefs that I see. I think more and more people definitely apply to Trinity and my restaurants because they want to learn how to make those sauces properly and cook things in a pan properly from start to finish. So I would say, yes, there is a resurgence towards that. I don't think it's a fight against anything more casual or simple, but I just think there's people are understanding that actually if you want a long-term career in this industry, that foundation of great classical cookery is super important. So, I think there is. Yeah.
But we hear about the kitchen changing a lot nowadays, getting a lot more PC. Does that mean that you see chefs who are sort of unwilling to roll up their sleeves and get stuck in and really put their hearts on the line, like you probably did? And
I don't think that's about PC. I think, in a good way, there is actually. I think we can probably call it post-COVID, if you like, right? Mm-hmm. There is a sense towards wanting a fairer work-life balance, wanting to have a great career and learn great things, but also not be sort of taken to the very edges of their existence doing it. And you know what? That's okay. That's how it shouldn't this industry be professional enough that we can pay people properly to thrive in London, not just survive, be in a position where we can train and teach people and they can enjoy what they do. Look, the industry, the chefing industry that we have now, it's never going to be easy work. You're never going to be able to come to work, do a few hours, play on your phone, do your thing and cruise through a day like I'm sure some people can do. It's just not like that. That's just not how we work. But I think there's going to be, there is now a much better placement of people in the way that people can actually have a work-life balance. And unless you get on board with that train and you start treating people properly and allowing them to grow and learn and fulfill all the things they want and have experiences, you won't get the best out of them and they won't stay. And that's just a matter of fact. So adapt your business or suffer the consequence, I think. But I think it's a great thing. I think it's a huge improvement. And I'll tell you for why. If my daughter's she's into it a little bit. She's only 16, but I think if she ever, I don't know if she will or not, but if she ever went into the industry, this is now an industry that I would love her to go into. 10 years ago, if she'd have asked me that, I would have absolutely not wanted her to come into the industry unless it was with me. Yeah. And so that's a beautiful thing, right?
Yeah, it's going in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, 50% of my kitchen is female, and I have we've now had in a position where we've 19 months we've had exactly the same chef brigade. That's never ever happened at all.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And since COVID, we have changed a lot of the way that people work and the way we look after people and the sort of essence of it. We still get the same production rate. We still do the same covers. We still get the same level of revenue coming through. All that that hasn't. The business model hasn't changed, but the way we treat people has changed a lot, and the retention has changed tenfold. So
amazing.
Has it become harder to make money in restaurants now?
Yes, it has to a degree. It's obviously harder due to the obvious stuff, as in utilities, the cost of food, and those kind of things that have just gone up naturally. And I don't think there's necessarily a buy-in from guests that should land on their plate. pardon the pun, but I think so. I think it is more difficult. I would say, if I'm being quite candid about it, the top end of the market is pretty buoyant, and people are still willing to pay for great food and great service and an experience that's exceptional. So that end of the market it's okay, and it's pretty buoyant. Trinity's still packed to the rafters and does very well. At the bottom, I think it's still really good as well, actually. In the really, really lower end of things, I think there's still a lot of huge demand for that. Margins are obviously a lot better. I think the middle sector, it's more difficult. Yeah. And I think that it's only my perception, obviously, but I think that's to do with the cost of living crisis and less disposable income at that sector, and therefore it's more difficult. And I know that because one of my restaurants sits in that middle sector, and it's more difficult now. Yeah. More difficult to make profit, but more difficult to fill midweek and things like that. So than it was, but yeah.
But you are doing a great initiative, sending your chefs from Trinity to, is this Everville Road, right?
Yeah, we do. I love that, actually. That's one of those sort of things you do that's quite, I don't know, it's quite holistic in a way. It's just I don't get a great deal out of it other than I just sit back and think that's a bloody great thing we've done there. Yeah. We do a chef series thing across we map it out for 18 months with all of our chefs, match them in front of the house and give them Bistro Union for a day. And basically they get a huge chunk of what they deliver financially, but moreover they get a chance to cook whatever what's burning inside them to cook as a young chef. We walk them through the costings and the procurement and a mini P&L for it as well, so they get a full understanding of the breadth of what that took to run that. And ultimately, what's important, I think, is that they stand there, they cook, and they serve that food, and it's all them. There is no one behind them. So if they walk out into that dining room, like I have to and have had to for many, many years, even after a bad service, you walk into a dining room, it's a pretty daunting thing. But if you walk out there and think, well, I made that happen. It was all me. And that's a really nice thing. And it bonds the team, the other colleagues come in and help them, work with them. So that's really lovely. I love that initiative. And I'd say it's probably good for retention as well, actually, because they're mapped in 18 months in advance. So
yeah. And also, I mean, you get to be sous chef level. You do that for a little bit, and if you're a young, thriving chef, you start to think, "Come on, I should have a crack at this. I could have my own place. I want to be head chef."
Yeah, that's right.
And so you look elsewhere, or so that must help with retention, giving people that kind of able to flex that muscle, or at least kind of realise it's not as easy as it may be.
Look into the window of what it's like to run that. Yeah. And we used to do it only from senior chef to party up, and that was probably my reserve, just doing it. But now we do it all the way up from even the commies, but we will then put a sous chef with the commie to mentor them through the whole, and be there with them the whole way. So then you're encouraging sort of training as well on top of that. And yeah, so it's only a win, that one, and they're packed out as well. The guests love it. I think they love supporting the young chefs like that. So that is a huge win. Love that.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
You say you don't have any regrets. When you stand on top of Trinity upstairs and you look over to the skate park in Clapham, do you ever regret not sort of pursuing a skating career? Because you're not going to be a skater at some point.
You know what? I'll take that as a regret. God, I was watching a program on Tony Hawk the other day. Yeah. The famous skateboarder. I thought, wow, that was a life. I was never going to become one of those, I can assure you. But many happy days on a skateboard as a young man, enjoying my young life, freedom and all that stuff. But that's when the sun shone for 9 months a year, and you could come home from school and go out for 9 hours, whatever it was. It was those were whole different days.
When did you hang up your skateboard?
When I started work, really.
Oh, really?
Okay, I did actually do it to quite a high level and loved it, and spent most of my life on it. It just was brilliant from about 10 to 16 when I started work. That was it. Done.
Well,
really?
Picked up a pan.
Next to the skate park is a basketball court now in Clapham. Adam Sandler's been there last couple of weekends. Has he been into Trinity yet? Has he popped in?
I couldn't possibly say.
Okay, fair play. Fair. He may have nipped in there. You obviously now control an incredible foodie empire. Do you still get a chance to get behind the stoves? Are you still in the kitchens, or?
I am still in the kitchen. Yeah, I think for a number of reasons. My work and my life is very different now. I want it to be different now. There's a couple of things in there though. I still cook because that's super important. I cooked a big dinner last night at Brown's. I cook a lot, mainly because that makes me whole, and it's what I love doing. And I cook the wine dinners at Trinity, and I cook on bits and pieces at Trinity with the team. But I have taken a sort of a conscious effort to allow Harry Kirkpatrick, who's our head chef at Trinity, to take the reins at Trinity and push that forward and feel a sense of ownership. And I've not done it in a sort of, part way where he can just sort of, here's the kitchen, Harry, but I'm still going to write the rota, I'm still going to do the ordering, I'm still going to write the menu, I'm still going to tell you what's on the menu, and I'm still going to come in every now and then and cause a whole load of chaos.
Yeah.
I've not done it like that. I have done it in a way that this is your ship, you win and your successes are yours, and you fail and your failures are yours. And I have done it like that. But having said that, I meet with Harry every single day. I cook with him 2 or 3 times a week, and we have a very honest and structured support relationship. And I think that allows me the space to go on and grow the business, and it allows him the opportunity to be the man he's going to become. So, yes, I do cook less than I did, but I cook the things I want to cook and that are meaningful for the business. And I think that's really important, actually. That's a good point in it all. Yeah.
Can you take us through, obviously this weekend, I believe, Trinity Outside opens up, summer's around the corner. For those who may not know your restaurant, can you just take us through the different offerings? Because you've got upstairs, the main Trinity Michelin-starred restaurant downstairs, and then outside, maybe just a couple of dishes from each and like how they differ. Yeah,
of course. It's an interesting one because I never really think about how different the whole thing is. But we opened Trinity 18 years ago, right? 2006. 2015, we closed it for 4 months. We built another restaurant on the top, and then we built a flat on top of that, actually a residential flat that we rent out. But in the upstairs restaurant, we were going to do a private dining room, and then I decided we would go for a higher level with Trinity and actually put a casual dining restaurant above it, partly to sort of make a barrier to entry less of a problem with a Michelin-star restaurant, and because I quite like that casual sector, actually, just cooking off a barbecue and just doing small plates come out when they're ready, and just, which was, if you think that's probably 9 years ago, that's 9 years ago, that was very much of the zeitgeist. You referred earlier to Russell Norman and that side of things, and that was very much that sort of thing, strip brickwork and all that, that sort of stuff that was still brilliant now. So we have Trinity downstairs, that's a 40 cover Michelin-star restaurant, and then we have upstairs that's also 40 covers but casual dining. There's only 2 chefs and 2 waiters that work there, and a KP, and it's packed every single service, and it's just fantastic. And so we have that, and then during the summer months, whenever that's going to be, we're kind of early May now, and we're just about to open outside. So we have a space which we can seat 30 covers outside, and it has its own kitchen and own bar outside as well. So we do another menu outside as well. So in terms of dishes, so outside is more like, I've sort of taken more like a Mediterranean view on things. So it's kind of like you've just been to Spain, Ibiza or something for a week, you come back, and this is where you would come and have your rosé, your deep fried calamari, your grilled sardines and that sort of stuff. It's that sort of food, salads and niçoise salads and things like that. So it's light, it's casual, lots of lovely drinks, cocktails, that sort of stuff. More beverage led, actually. It's probably got a higher wet led spend actually outside. Trinity, on the other hand, is obviously a Michelin-star restaurant. It's a 4-course menu, so it's quite an interesting way we do it. But the first 4 dishes on the menu are like crudo, raw. So it could be like a tuna crudo with avocado, XO dressing. It could be a beef tartare with bone marrow, caviar, that sort of crudo thing. The second course is more, that's where the carbohydrate might come into the menu. So a bit more like an Italian style menu, if you like, but the food's not Italian at all. So on that, you might get a pasta dish. You might get a lovely warm smoked salmon with a very classical beurre blanc and trout roe and that sort of stuff. And then on the main courses, we'll have 4 main courses, 2 fish, 2 meat, and a vegetarian option, obviously. And then you'll have a very classical dish, a piece of turbot with its own braising juices and English asparagus and wild garlic at the moment. So nice and simple, understandable. And then upstairs, it's kind of, there are dishes like the grilled purple sprouting broccoli with bagna cauda and hazelnuts. The head chef up there is actually Italian, and he's a great cook. And the menu probably slants a little bit more into the Italian thing, which I love, and suits, I think, the small plates. So you will have a vitello tonato up there, but equally we might have different cuts of beef, which we cook only on a barbecue over coals, or we have a little induction to warm stuff up, but it's all cooked on a barbecue. So lots of whole grilled fish, lots of whole steaks, and the idea is you sort of have probably 4 or 5 plates between 2 people to share, one large plate backing up into a salad, a nice crudo dish, and and probably a little burrata or something like that.
God.
Always burrata.
You can just live there forever, couldn't you?
Yeah.
Going between the floors and outside. It sounds absolutely.
Yeah, so there are 3 different concepts, but
Yeah.
it's all intertwined, and they all have their own kitchens, and that's a sort of separate part to it. But upstairs does use the sort of the secondary pieces from Trinity. So if you came to Trinity and ate a chicken dish that would come off of a crown of chicken, the legs have probably gone upstairs to be a lovely confit served with perhaps lentils and mortar sausage. You know, that's how it sort of folds
Very
around.
smart. Yeah.
We take these beautiful turbots at Trinity, the head, the tail, the excess pieces from the portioning would all go upstairs and perhaps be goujons of turbot upstairs. You know, that's kind of how we work Trinity. Yeah.
You got your first Michelin star in 2016. Giles Coran, who can be a bit of a harsh critic, said
I
your
love Giles.
food is as close to perfection as possible.
He did, yeah. I didn't pay him for that.
No, yeah, I'm sure you didn't. We had a Gabriel Waterhouse on. We mentioned to you him earlier off camera, off mic, whatever. And he was trying to sort of get his head around how to get his foot in the door post sort of Bib Gourmand into like the stars. What are your thoughts in terms of progressing? Have you had like a tussle with Michelin to try to get that 2nd star? Are you happy with the 1 star? Like, what do you think about that?
There's a number of questions in there. Giles was very kind, and I like Giles Coran a lot, actually. And yes, we had a 1st star in 2015. We were pretty strategic when we reopened after the refurbishment. That was our goal. I've always felt the restaurant worked at that sort of level. You know, we're a tablecloth, fine dining, if you like, sort of restaurant. Fantastic, huge wine list that we've invested heavily in over the years. And I felt that we should be that level of restaurant, rather presumptuously, obviously. But but I think that was about just, you know, we've got that because of the consistency and because of the way that we buy and the produce we buy and the simplicity of the cookery now, actually. There certainly was no tussle, or isn't any tussle with Michelin. But my take on the whole 2nd star thing, and I do get asked that question a lot, do we have the kitchen and the team to do that? Yes, probably. But do you know what? Actually, I say this quite often to the team. Our aspirations are very simple. We just would like to be the very best 1-star restaurant in the country. That's it.
Very nice.
And ultimately, I think if that's your goal, you're not setting yourself up for failure. You're setting yourself up for a reasonable achievement in terms of pushing your standards to be as best you can be. But I don't think that sets anyone up for failure and disappointment. And actually, what an amazing place to be in. And if you sit there and actually meaningfully sit there and write down what you think the 10 or 15 best 1-stars in the country are, that's an incredibly brilliant list of people.
Yeah.
And to be even meddling in that little mix is quite a privilege. So that's kind of how I feel about it, and I say that message to the team, and I believe that. But whatever happens.
To give people just a little insight, like, are there areas of the business or areas of the way you do things, the menu, etc., that you feel like you'd have to put your foot down on the accelerator a little more to get to a 2nd star? Or if they just feel like you're continuing to be consistent and continuing to be excellent, they might award you a 2nd star?
But,
do you know what I mean? Do you think like if we did X, Y, and Z, we probably would get there?
do you know? I don't think about things like that.
No,
I don't sort of.
nice
I just don't analyze it that much. I do genuinely though come in and question every day whether we're being the best we can be.
Yeah.
But you know what? Restaurants are bloody complicated. There's a million moving parts, and my time is taken up with an awful lot of little bits and pieces that I get involved in, and the other things I have to get. So actually, if I dedicated time to things like that, I think it would be wasted.
Yeah.
I do understand the point, and I think there's something in that, but I don't aspire. I aspire to have a full restaurant with really happy diners. I know it's quite cliche, but I genuinely do. And if my team are really happy and the restaurant's full, geez, man, that feels like I just won. I won in life.
Yeah.
Well,
let alone sit there, start and analyse why, you know.
Yeah.
So
your early culinary hero, Marco Pierre White, who we're going to come onto in a bit, obviously gave his stars in, so, you know, fuck stars.
There you go.
I do want to move on to a quick fast section called Go-To Menu. It's obviously we reserve for the great Michelin star chefs we have on this podcast. So just the first thing which comes to your mind, what's the dish you'll always order if on a menu?
On a menu, do you know what? I eat quite simply when I'm out. I'll always have grilled fish. That's what, if there's fish on the bone, a bream, a Dover sole, piece of turbot on the bone, I'll always eat that. And that's what I always eat.
What's on too many menus right
now? Kaufman fries. Although they're on my menu, one of my menus as well, because they're bloody brilliant. And all kudos to Pierre Kaufman, because that is a great thing he's done there. They are delicious, but Jesus, everyone's
got
them,
them,
man. And I just see mushroom parfait everywhere, and I just think, please stop. Please stop. Leave that to Heston.
What's been the worst cooking food throughout your career, possibly, or now?
This would just be an age thing for me, but I think that the sort of barbecue, sticky, filthy thing, when everything's sort of coated in a sugary, syrupy, ketchupy, I just can't get behind that. But it might be because I'm not the age group, I'm not the target audience for that. But I just think just covering up a multitude of things.
Yeah.
Best cooking hack you can share with our listeners?
Well, I can tell you now there aren't any cooking hacks. There really aren't. If you want to make great food, you need to buy great produce. You need to take your time. I would say if you learn to make a cartouche and you learn how to season food from the beginning of its conception properly, you would turn your food from good to great.
Okay. I think that's very, very wise. Cartouche being a piece of paper that you put on stoppers things.
That's correct.
Yeah, okay.
That's correct. A halfway house between a lid and no lid.
Yeah.
Actually, a cartouche is quite a magical thing in the kitchen where it allows that evaporation, doesn't allow coloration, but you can adjust it and you can add to it. It's a very important part of cookery, and we use them all the time. We also season our food from the very beginning, so the seasoning is embedded into that cookery from the beginning at the right amount.
Yeah.
And if you can master those couple of little bits, your cooking will definitely improve.
Favourite sauce of all time?
Well, actually, I like sauces that are made from, let's say you braise a piece of turbot in white wine and a little bit of fish stock and whatever else is going to be in that pan. You braise a piece of turbot on the bone, you take it out, you reduce that down, you add a little bit of cream or creme fraiche or butter or whatever. That's that form of sauce, like a champenoise sauce or a simple fish velouté, cooked like that, where there's the essence of the fish or the protein in it. Same applies with a piece of venison or whatever. I think those sauces where you can really feel that piece of meat in there or a piece of protein are just, they're just incredible. I love those. Yeah.
And what's the best dish you've had in the last year or so, outside your own incredible restaurants?
Outside of my restaurants. Yeah. Do you know what? I had a dish in February. This will probably surprise you. I stayed with an ex-chef of mine in a little place called the Both House in Scotland. He's in a lovely little hotel up there. And and he cooked me a breakfast, which was a piece of smoked haddock, best piece of smoked haddock I've ever had, with 2 poached eggs, the best poached eggs I've ever eaten. And then what he'd done, when he'd poached the haddock, he'd then taken that sort of cream and milk and liaised that with egg and sort of whizzed it up a little bit to make a perfect liaison. Napped that over the back of the haddock with 2 poached eggs. It was absolutely pinpoint accurate and delivered so much pleasure. I just thought it was incredible. And I kept waxing on about it and he cooked me this incredible 15-course gastronomic feast, and all I kept waxing on about was the poached haddock and eggs. But ultimately, it isn't about that, is it? It's about the accuracy of that and someone taking that much time over something like that.
Yeah,
that it just stands out as one of the most incredible dishes. Having said that, I did eat the Lebrie a couple of days before they got their 3rd Michelin star, and that was incredible.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that sounds worth me drinking, celebrating for. Ben, little drinks. What do we have? Do we have anything to sort of?
Well, I've made some gin and tonics.
Okay.
Would you like a gin and tonic?
Yeah, I wouldn't say no. Why not?
Why not? He's a rock and roller. When you make a G&T, what is your go-to cocktail, Adam? If you're out, not working, or maybe working.
Okay, so no, I don't generally drink during the week. Actually, no, I'm a bit boring now. I'm not at home anyway. If I go out for dinner or something, I might, but I tend to sort of lay off and just drink nice. At the weekend, drink a nice bottle of wine. But my favourite cocktail actually is, and this is going to sound weird, but it's called Trinity.
Okay.
And that's obviously it came about because we were looking at different cocktails to have a signature of the restaurant years and years ago, and this cocktail came about, and it's 1 part sweet vermouth, 1 part dry vermouth, and 1 part gin, and then it's shaken over ice and a piece of lemon. Very simple cocktail, but I love it. I think it's really lovely. I like vermouth. I think vermouth for me is a beautiful. I drink vermouth quite a lot.
Yeah.
Just vermouth, tiny bit of tonic, even a little bit of ice. That's it. I'm fine with that. And you're not gonna.
What would you call that? Because I made that the other day on the pod, and everyone was telling me it was called an Americano.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Okay.
Sometimes I put a little bit of olive brine in it.
Oh.
Red vermouth, olive brine, and a tiny splash of soda, and that's
amazing.
yeah. But also you could sit there and drink that, and you're not going to fall over either. It's not.
No.
quite nice, really.
What about when you entertain at home, if you ever do get the chance to do that in between all the incredible restaurants you go? What are the little snacks, we ask everyone this, your little canapes you put out before a supper? Like, do you have something you sort of go to?
Or I like, puff pastry with anchovies. I like something like anchovies or something crunchy and fresh like radish, just fresh radishes with a beautiful whipped creme fraiche or sour cream or something like that. Something that's just completely juxtapositioned to the meal, but also like really big hit of something flavoursome or textured.
I quite often put out just radishes and salt, and
Yeah,
it blows
lovely.
people's minds.
Yeah, lovely.
You think I've just washed some radishes.
Cheers, Adam. Thank
Sorry,
you
there's
so
no
much for
sort of
coming in, mate.
accoutrement with that, but we
Pleasure.
are in a
Pleasure.
basement.
We are in a basement somewhere.
Are you low on ice?
I'm low on ice. There's no ice. There's no refrigeration down here.
That's very nice. Thank you very much.
What about your morning drink? First thing you drink in the morning?
Black coffee.
Okay,
Very simple.
very simple. And what about your hangover drink of choice and hangover food cure?
Oh, do you know what? I don't get hangovers very often.
Is that because you're a rock and roller, or?
No, because I don't really drink. I don't drink bad drinks.
Yeah, okay.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
Well,
It's not the problem.
It's not the problem. That's the solution.
Yeah.
Privilege me.
Yeah.
I only drink really nice wine, and I don't tend to get a hangover. But if I did, then I would probably drink a full fat Coke, probably.
Okay.
Which I never drink, but I would drink it on that occasion. Black magic, they call it, don't they?
Yeah.
Tends to get you out of a hole.
And what
But in
food
all
do you-
honesty, that doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
Because I have so much going on, and
Yeah.
I kind of don't want to end up in that position where you lose a whole day.
Of course.
The numbness is quite nice.
Yeah, it is quite nice. What about food, though? What are you pairing the Coke with? Like, if you can remember back to the days where you were getting a bit more hungover, pre the nice wine cellar.
Well, that's the thing with the hangover, isn't it? It makes you just eat any old rubbish that comes along and just gets sugar back in you. But I don't know, probably a bacon sandwich.
Bacon sunny.
Yeah.
Brown sauce, red sauce?
Red sauce. I'm a southerner from East London.
Well, talking about being a southerner, obviously you started cooking at Claridge's at the age of 16, which is just insane. But what part did Marco Pierre White play in that? Because I've read that he was a big inspiration to you.
Yeah, I think at the time there were very few chefs that had sort of stepped out of the kitchen and come to the forefront. Harvey's was obviously in the years that I was doing my apprenticeship at Claridge's, Harvey's had sort of exploded onto the scene. The Roux brothers were doing the Albert and Michel Senior were doing a wonderful program on telly, and Marco was doing his program, which came out, and I was just transfixed by it, and I just thought, who is this guy? This is amazing, just sort of, it really captured me. I think it captured a whole generation of chefs actually at that time, not just me, and once I was going to leave Claridge's and move on, and that was where that whole conversation came around. I'd missed the opportunity to go and work at Harvey's, which I would have done, but I'd missed that because he'd then moved on. But what I found, the closest thing I found to that was that Phil Howard had worked at the Harvey's, and that seemed like a great reason to go and work at the Square, ultimately.
But you were working under the great John Williams, right, at Claridge's?
That's right, yeah.
Now
5
he's
years.
still chef patron at the Ritz,
Ritz, yeah.
which is just insane. What a wonderful character he is.
Yeah.
But just tell us about your experience being a young guy in Claridge's. What were you cooking? How's it differed to sort of now? Like, any dishes still linger in the mind?
Yeah, I mean that was an incredible. I was incredibly lucky to have an apprenticeship like that in such a great establishment, where you're not learning to cook actually, and that's the sort of big take home here. You're learning to be a chef and to conduct yourself as a chef, dress like a chef, behave like a chef, discipline, structure, process, procedure. That's what you're learning actually for the first couple of years. I think in a lot of ways we've lost a lot of that because that takes time and money and everything else. I didn't cook anything for the first 2.5 years, I don't think. That's a whole different thing. But you have to imagine, this is in 1985, something like that. There was probably 80 or 90 chefs in that kitchen, and I was like number 94, right? So I'm right at the bottom of this enormous pile of people, and these are big grown-up people, right? That are craftsmen, and they're serious, and they're dressed seriously, and there's a whole hierarchy here. There's a butchery, there's a fishmongery, there's a bakery, there's a larder section, a fish section. There's sections all over the place, and to be able to have my apprentices there and spend 3 months in the butchery, 6 months in the fishmongery, 6 months in the pastries, 4 months in the bakery. I mean, the roundedness of your craft that you get from spending 5 years like that was just incredible.
Amazing.
And obviously, there was a restaurant kitchen, which then became Gordon's restaurant with Mark Sargent, and then that became Ferrer and blah blah blah, right?
Yeah.
And then Daniel Hum. But I ended up working in that restaurant towards the back end of my apprenticeship, so I got the restaurant experience as well. So when I walked out of that out of that hotel after 5 years, I'd done so much. And I know I was grateful for that, and I still am. But I wish that those experiences could still happen for young
Can you
chefs,
still hire people from that kind of?
Yeah, so that I was trained on something called the Royal Academy of Culinary Arts, a specialised chef's course. I was privileged to go on to be selected by Claridge's to be put on that course. So I was shipped down to Bournemouth, spent 6 months in Bournemouth, back to Claridge, and lived in Bournemouth and went to college. But this wasn't college 2 hours a day. This was 8 hours a day, shoes shine, shaven. Not that I was shaving at the time, but shaven, shoes shining, necktie, big, iron press whites.
Military almost.
Military
stuff, yeah.
structure and discipline, really heavily. And then you were back to Claridge's for 9 months. Then you were back to the college for another 6 months. And this went on for 4 years. It was really intense, but I am so privileged to have had that education, and that foundation is absolutely what has taken me as far as I am today. And obviously having the likes of John Williams there with me as a mentor, as hard as that was at times, he's still, one of the best cooks I've ever worked with, and one of the most inspirational people I've ever worked for. So it was amazing, and he still remains a great mentor and friend at this day now. So
being 16, were you taken out for a couple of drinks with the boys? I mean, these were back in the days of debauchery and great fun in the kitchen.
Yeah, no, the problem is, right, I developed really late. There's a long story to that, but I cut my Achilles heel. I cut my Achilles tendon straight through when I was young at 12, 13. And because of that, I had a year out of school and a year where I didn't walk. So basically what happened was, not many people know this, so actually my body stopped growing. So I basically developed 2 or 3 years late. So when I walked into Claridge's, I was 5'2" at 15.
Wow, right.
Yeah, and by the time I was 19, I was 6'1".
Whoa.
So I just grew really, really quickly. I just went through all of that. So absolutely no, I wasn't going to the pub and drinking beer at 16. But once the boys got there, once I was sort of 18 or so, I was just about old enough to go for a beer.
John Williams, incredible chef, as you were saying there. What was that sort of great standout dish which you got to work on, or you got to try or sample at Claridge's?
I think what stands out for me is actually the trolleys in the restaurant. So the main kitchen will be responsible for getting a lot of the trolleys ready for the restaurant every day, and this trolley changed every day. So it would have like a poached lamb leg dish with a white sauce and beautiful turned potatoes to go with it. There was a steak and kidney pudding on there, which is just magical, where you marinate the steak and the kidney with Worcester sauce and beef stock and a little flour, a little red wine, bits and pieces, and then that would all get packed into a suet pastry case and then steam for 5 hours and then go on the trolley and cut out in the room. And there was obviously roast beef on there. There was obviously a salmon and turbot kubiak on there, so on croûte, beef Wellington, things like that. So just seeing and being part of the process of those things, and they would then come back from the restaurant, there'd be trimmings on them, so you'd always get to taste them. And they stuck with me as just the most magical, celebratory, amazing dishes that I learned, and they were great. And they had a curry on there as well.
Cool.
On a Tuesday, they had a curry with all these amazing garnishes, and to learn that at Claridge's was amazing. Yeah.
Talking about those food memories, your mum was a chef, right, when you were growing up? Can you remember sort of some great foodie memories from being a child?
She was a chef for a little bit, for directors' dining rooms for Marks and Spencer, I think. Did all the courses and stuff, and then had me quite young, I think 21 or so. So she gave up that and had me, but obviously she cooked at home and we cooked together in bits and pieces. I don't think that's why I wanted to become a chef necessarily. It just sort of, academia wasn't my thing, and I just wanted to get a great apprenticeship somewhere. I wanted structure, and discipline and that kind of. I was looking for that. So I think probably anything. I was too small for the police, as I've just said, and the army looked a bit scary. So I think it was kind of a bit of a halfway
Do you have
house.
memories of dishes from childhood?
Yeah, I do. It's interesting. Like, Mum cooked a lot of home cooked food, brilliantly. But then, do you know what? Actually, things changed a little bit. The massive supermarket. When supermarkets landed in the UK, this massive supermarket landed just around the corner from our house, and all this incredible new convenience type food, the Findus pancake things and the chicken Kievs and all that kind of stuff
Hard to
arrived.
resist.
Well, I think it was so new and interesting for everyone. So everyone was eating that at the time. This is, I guess, in the late 80s or 90s, I guess. Late 80s, yeah. So all of a sudden that sort of entered our repertoire at home.
Yeah.
Which obviously as a youngster, you're like, that's amazing.
Brilliant.
Yeah, more of that, please. More baked beans, please.
Yeah.
But no, Mum, to be absolutely fair to her, all credit, she cooked brilliantly. And still does. As a young man, I ate very well. Yeah.
Can you remember the first time you went abroad and sort of tasted different, maybe France or Spain?
I can actually. That's a really important food memory for me. I went on a French exchange when I was 14, and it was in Lyon.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know what Lyon. I didn't know where France was, let alone Lyon at the time. But I went to this little French family who lived on a farm there, and this was literally just a total eureka moment for me. Sat down at this farmhouse table. I remember the mum was in a beautiful pinny, and there was flowers on the table, and it was all just incredible. And they served whole artichokes as the lunch. And I was looking at this thing thinking, what on earth is that? How is this going to work? And obviously they showed me, peel off the leaves, dip in a little vinaigrette, and eat them. And it was just transforming for me. I just had this total in awe what is going on. Next breakfast next morning was goat's milk, freshly taken goat's milk, just a glass of that, and then some cereal with the goat's milk again, and this, and peaches from the trees. And I was just thinking, I have landed in a completely alternate universe. Yeah. But it wouldn't, as I've just reeled that off like it was yesterday, and it really felt like it was a really important part of me connecting with food, and me having that sort of inquisitiveness and curiosity to try and develop something in food. So
it's funny, I had exactly the same experience.
Did you really?
Yeah, I was only 9.
Were you there with me?
Well, that's what I'm thinking. As you were describing, I was sent to this
Yeah.
little prick called Gauvin, who didn't want to talk to me at all. And halfway through the exchange, we went on holiday to his grandmother's house, which was further south in France. And she spoke a tiny bit of English. And this guy wouldn't talk to me. And so I just gravitated towards her. Same thing. She was an old woman in a pinny.
Yeah.
And she turned out an artichoke. And I just thought, what the hell is that? Never seen it
all
before.
they ate in France in the 1990s.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. And then, same thing. And the magic of it, it
totally stayed with me.
Yeah.
I was in awe. Even going to the school and seeing them in eating in the school dining room, and the food that were being served in the school dining room was completely amazing.
Yeah.
When you went to the Square, obviously you helped Phil Howard get his second Michelin star. He trained under...
I don't know if that's
entirely
Morris.
Take the credit.
Yeah. He trained under Mark Harvey, as you said earlier, Simon Hopkinson as well at Bibendum. So what was that step up like for you as a chef, going into like a Michelin star kitchen, pushing for that second star?
When I first worked at the Square, actually I turned up at the Square on the first day in the old Square, which was in King Street, fresh out of Claridge's, having done a number of stages in London. I turned up. Phil wasn't there. It was Bank Holiday Monday, actually, and I turned up and put all my regalia on from Claridge's with a necktie and a hat and all the stuff, and walked into the kitchen. It was a very different kitchen, put it that way. But anyway, I then stayed there for another year or so in the King Street site. That was a great one star at the time, super rock and roll, relentless in terms of its numbers, but totally inspirational in the cooking front, and I loved that very much. And then I stayed with the team and moved over to the new site in Bruton Street and did a bit more time there with Phil and the team there. And it was just I look back on those days as some of the happiest days I've ever had in the kitchen, because also I was at a level where actually my sole thought process in life was, how do I get on place? How do I get out of here? How do I get 2 pints down me, get home, get enough sleep, and get back and do it all over again? That was about the only thing that mattered. This is pre-mobile phone, this is literally the only thing that the centre of my entire world was, can I get on place for lunch? That's it. And nothing else really mattered.
Quite nice.
Well, yeah, exactly right. And I think about what goes through my head now, and I just think, wow, those were great days. Poor Phil, only now do I realise what, Phil would have to be dealing with at the time. And
he must have been quite young at the
pressure
time.
of it.
Sort of a precocious talent, Philip.
I was actually quite young. I was probably 23, 4.
Amazing kitchen to be in at that.
It's incredible people in there. I was on the line there with the likes of Shane Osborne and Juntanaka and Brett Graham was there, and Rob Weston, and I mean, I could go on and on and on.
Yeah.
Some absolutely incredible people came through that kitchen, far better than me, and it was a real pleasure to cook with them all. But it was relentless, and it was like the numbers were consistently huge. The volumes of food you were processing through. You know, when the fish guy turned up, he didn't turn up with a couple of red mullet, a sea bass, a little turbot.
Yeah.
He'd come in with 3 boxes of 9 sea bass. You know, this was serious, right? If you weren't quick, you were in trouble.
Gone.
Yeah. So it was, but atmosphere was great, culture was great. It was a healthy competitive culture, but I think everyone was just so far in the shit all the time that you never had time to get out of line or cause any problems because everyone was so far in the shit. But the food you were cooking and putting up was some of the best in London, without a doubt. Yeah. And we had a packed restaurant, which, you know, made Phil proud, rightly so. And I think we all felt that sense of pride that we were cooking in a restaurant that was, there were other restaurants with higher accolades at the time, but they were nowhere near doing anywhere what the score was at the time. And look at the cooks that generated. And I still say that Phil is one of the best cooks that London's ever seen.
Yeah.
What's been the single worst day you've ever experienced in a kitchen?
I mean, I've had some pretty gnarly services in my life. I don't know, probably just injuring myself. I poured a huge pound of boiling veal fat over my hand and ended up in A&E for 9 hours, and that was pretty gross. And you know, stuff like that happens because, you know, that ultimately 35 years, you know, sitting in the restaurant on the 20th of May 2020, 20th of March 2020, when Boris is announcing closing the restaurant, that's a pretty hard thing to sit there and deal with. You know, I had a member of the team pass away. That's really difficult to deal with. You know, when you've got that lifespan of a restaurant like that and that sort of career like that, there's so many wonderful and tragic things that happen through it. It's a whole. Yeah, I have to write a book one day.
Can you remember the worst customer? I mean, you must have dealt with some tricky customers at the time.
Yeah, I did throw out quite a famous person actually for the restaurant, but I'm not going to talk about it.
Oh, go on.
No, I won't.
What was it that kind of
just rude? I think just rudeness really.
Yeah,
and
right.
I think that person was pretty frustrated by the other people around him, and there was another very famous person next to him. And he was pretty obnoxious, and in the end, I just asked him to leave.
Teaches Gordon Ramsay not to come to Trinity again.
Yeah. Gordon Ramsay. No.
You then became head chef at the Works in a photo studio in Fulham, a complete change of worlds, really.
That's right.
Tell us about the best dish on the menu there and that experience.
You've been doing great research.
He doesn't mess around, Freddie.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's all on the net, isn't it? I opened that with Phil Howard. Yeah. After I left the Square, we opened. He got involved in a restaurant in Heathman's Place, is it, in Parsons Green, in a photographic studio. Put me in situ there. Actually, it was a fantastic restaurant because it was only opened normal hours. Sort of.
As in,
we
like
were in at 7.
Hours.
Yeah, exactly. Daylight hours. Yeah. So I managed to sort of lead my then fiance into a false sense of security, and so this might be my life. And then we got married during that period. So it was 1998 then. So we got married then, and then I turned it all into shit and opened my own restaurant. So, that was a great restaurant. The Works. It was a canteen for an incredible photographic studio. So I did get to meet all those incredible supermodels and all the brilliant photographers that were around at the time. That was really inspiring. Actually, I enjoyed that. And also we moved away from Essex and moved to Fulham, which was a brilliant milestone in our lives. And then we got married, Vicky and I. So
yeah, nice.
We are going to get onto the juice bars and a couple of other things in a second. Wow. But firstly, we're going to move on to the go-to food section. This is where Ben brings out something which he thinks you're going to enjoy, Adam. Maybe you won't. Maybe you won't even want to touch it because he's done a bit of research on you in terms of food. But we also go through.
I've actually just followed my own. I made vol au vents for you.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you.
Nice. I find vol au vents fun. That's a bit like our asparagus.
Yeah.
Is it? Have you got an asparagus vol au vent?
Yeah, we have. Yeah.
Oh, well, there you go. I've made that as a bit of a gag for Freddie. It's gone very well.
And you made smoked salmon with polonaise.
Yeah, and polonaise. One of the first menus I ever wrote when I opened a restaurant. I wasn't a very good chef. I don't know why I put leeks polonaise. I put polonaise on leeks.
Beautiful.
I don't know if that's a classic thing to do.
It is a classic thing to do.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, it is.
And I saw on your Instagram
with a vinaigrette. Yeah,
that you were, and I thought that's mad. I have to make
Where are those bagels from?
They're actually from Banook Bagels, new bagel company from South London.
We serve Polonaise with the smoked salmon at Brown's.
Really?
And yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Great texture.
Great. I mean, this won't be a particularly good Polonaise. It's sat in a Tupperware. While I made the training. But let's try it.
You're not selling it, but yeah.
Well,
it's freshly made this morning.
Freshly made this morning, but I always like to caveat, we are in a basement.
We are in a basement. Adam, what's your go-to weekday breakfast?
And there's some napkins.
Yeah, I don't eat breakfast is actually the answer to that, I'm afraid to say.
No.
No,
what about your go-to delivery order then?
You're going to hate me. I just don't have delivery. We don't have
You don't
delivery.
need
My daughter sometimes orders sticks and sushi delivered in.
Yeah.
Does that count?
Kind of. You're paying for it, I suppose.
Yeah, I am paying for it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but
what about
we
the
don't know.
dish you cook most midweek? If your daughter's back at the family.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. So I don't have the work life where I come home at 1 o'clock in the morning anymore. No. That's kind of done, thank goodness. And I have a slightly more balanced life. But I am home often at kind of 10 o'clock-ish. And my wife and daughter, my son's moved out now. He works in the restaurant with us, actually. Nice. But he's moved out now, so it's only my wife, my daughter, and me at home. But so I sort of get home 10-ish or something, whatever, give or take. And what they will have eaten, but they'll have left something, perhaps some couscous, some rice, or a piece of fish, or whatever. Basically, what I do, I tend to make this like poke bowl thing.
Nice.
And I always do it the same way. I either just get a metal, like a kitchen bowl, put a little bit of couscous, pour boiling water, seasoning. Put cling film on it, have a shower, and then come back and just like put a little bit leftover fish, bit of avocado, a couple of prawns, bit of chili in there, few greens in there, few cashew nuts, whatever, some chili crack stuff, and I sit there, maybe a little glass of wine, sometimes probably not a cup of tea, and then catch up with my wife half an hour, eat that, go to bed.
Delicious.
And I eat that probably more at home than I do anything else.
Really?
I don't know if you call it a poke bowl, but basically a bowl of enough good stuff to make you feel great. Yeah.
Dare I ask if you've ever had a meal deal in your life?
What's that?
Like a sandwich,
sandwich, crisps and a drink from like Sainsbury's or Boots.
I haven't.
No.
Sorry.
That's a mark of honour, I think, when people are able to say, I've never had a meal deal.
What about your go-to favourite spice or ingredient?
Ingredient overall, it probably has to be olive oil. I think it's a bit cliche, I know, but I think I tend to use an awful lot of olive oil. But I love olive oil.
Where's your olive oil coming from? Probably all
we have different olive oils from all over. We use Capizana olive oil. I like a lot. I'm a big fan of that. We keep that for certain dishes. Obviously, don't cook with it. And then we have olive oils we cook with, and olive oils we sort of some warm up but don't heat. And I'm a bit stickler to it. But at home, I have a whole sort of range of olive oils that I like with different things, and put olive oil on a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Spice-wise, we use a lot of Vermouth spice. Which is
spice.
Yeah, it's like a sort of.
You know that
it's a Indian spice, but it's slightly different. It's quite chunky in texture and has a much softer, sweeter flavour to it. Yeah, it's delicious.
So I missed what that sort of similarity would be to what is it? Vermouth. Quite exciting.
That's really good, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's like an Indian spice
sort of
base.
Mix.
Yeah, it's a
blend.
mix.
Okay,
Exactly,
nice.
it's a mix. Yeah.
Post the works, you decided to get in there. It's really
getting into the boring stuff. What's in there? Avocado.
No, it's an asparagus, like asparagus, creme fraiche, lemon zest, bit of spring onion.
Yeah, it's really good.
Salt and pepper.
It's very good.
We're a bit early for asparagus, perhaps, but
no.
they're sort of on the cusp, right?
Made a huge asparagus. No, fully in season.
Oh, wait, okay, right, perfect. Depends when this goes out, but we're fine.
Yeah. Post the works, you decided to set up your own juice bars. You've been working at some of the greatest restaurants in the world, and you say, actually, fuck restaurants. I want to go open a juice bar. What's the thinking behind that, Adam? And how did that go?
Actually, it wasn't me. That was Phil Howard.
Right. Okay.
That said to me, "I'm gonna."
Phil.
Yeah, I've just been to New York and done a New York marathon, and I've just had a great idea. We should open a load of juice bars. You on board? Can you make the food? And I said, yeah, I'm down for that. And we did. We had a couple of years on a journey.
What were they? What were they called?
We did it JUS, a jus, if you like.
Okay, yeah.
Sort of that kitchen slang thing. But and you know what? They were a lot of fun, and we did some great things. Way before its time.
Well, you guys were way ahead of your time. That was the problem.
Way ahead. We were sort of vacuum packing when that was only just a thing. Like whole banana, beautiful fresh strawberries, some blueberries, some fresh apple, whatever, and a bit of juice in there, whatever, and it would hang on the shelf in the store. We opened 4 stores, and then you would blend that with ice and produce this incredible fresh smoothie.
Yeah.
But actually, I think what I loved about that was sort of researching a subject or food that I knew nothing about, and going a bit of a deep dive into something and trying to really understand how that works and what we could do from a chef perspective to make that more interesting and not processed and whatnot. But ultimately, what it did was led to me wanting to just get it back in the kitchen and do what I was good at.
And then did Thyme follow that?
That's right.
Yeah,
straight after it. Yeah.
Have you ever cooked for the great Market Pierre White?
Only at the Square.
Only at the Square. Okay, fair play. So you're not friendly with them?
No.
Fair play.
Not that I'm not friendly with him.
No,
I'm just
no,
not.
no.
I just no.
And then I do also want to know. It's a question we ask the great chefs. If you could be in charge of one other restaurant in the world, where would it be? Or what would it be?
Now or like forever?
In
forever.
by in charge of? Do you mean own?
If you could run, one
Own and run.
restaurant, which isn't one of yours.
If I could own it.
Own it, run it. Yeah.
You were thinking profit margins.
Well, I'm only thinking of the commercial sense of it,
Yeah.
probably. I think the River Cafe is an amazing restaurant.
Yeah.
And I'm in awe of, when I go there, I'm in absolute awe of the way they've managed to do what they've done there. And it is such an incredible restaurant. Culture of the team, the way the food is, how they set up and do what they do. I just think it's brilliant.
Yeah.
And
I think we've done sort of 18 episodes so far of this podcast. I think everybody's mentioned the River Cafe in some form, haven't they?
Yeah, well,
just-
it's an
it's
institution.
It's an absolute institution.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a phenomenon that will never be repeated.
No.
What would you order if you went there? Or just anything and everything?
I went there 2 weeks ago.
Go on. What was the best thing?
I had asparagus with bagna chowder, and then I had a piece of braised veal shin with risotto bianco and chimi di rapa.
Absolutely delicious.
And then Vicky and I shared tiramisu.
Was your wife
It
in
was
the cooking game ever? Or not?
No, she's not. No, she does all the flowers for all the restaurants
Oh, awesome.
and looks after the house and our daughter and me.
What do you think about the Abbeville Road? That's actually started to pop up a tiny bit, hasn't it? In terms of like other little places alongside. Was that new place?
I've been on Abbeville Road now with Bistream for 13 years, I
Yeah.
think, which is definitely the longest standing restaurant on that.
It's a great road.
It is a great road.
Oh, go on.
It is a great road, but trading on that street is a little bit more tricky in terms of when the holidays come and things
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. But I think I'm very proud of Bistream, and the team there are amazing, and the way that we managed to sort of navigate that community and work within the community there is brilliant. And I'm very proud of Bistream. Yeah, it's a cracking restaurant, and it's exactly that sort of restaurant I would want to go to if I lived
Yeah,
right next to it. I'd
100%.
pop in for a drink, 2 plates at the bar.
Yeah.
Andy Lambert, our chef there, is an absolute talent. A really, really great
Was
cook.
he ex-Canton Arms?
Yeah, 11 years at Canton Arms.
Yeah, yeah,
and,
yeah.
Wow.
and I always loved the food at the Canton
Yeah,
Arms.
So do I.
and,
It's a brilliant place.
Yeah, Tish is brilliant. And Andy's just a great cook and runs a really lovely ship as well. Like the culture is really aligned with the way we want to run things. And his food's brilliant.
What else
And,
do you like in Clapham? Because it's surprising that, you were there sort of, 23 years ago. We'd have thought maybe we'd seen a bigger boom of great places to eat. There are obviously a couple.
Yeah, I mean, having the dairy there
Yeah.
for a little while with Robin was brilliant. That's not there anymore, but that was a great to have that there. And I think the more great restaurants, the better in a place. But
100%.
do you know what I really like in Clapham actually is Juliet's. I don't know if you know Juliet's.
So good.
I'm a big fan of Juliet's. I think the cooking and the thought process behind it is
Yeah, yeah.
brilliant.
So what sort of food we
It's
get?
brunch.
Juliet?
This is brunch
Brunch.
territory.
Okay, right,
but
yeah.
Starting
Yeah.
Tooting, it's fucking brilliant.
The one in Tooting's amazing,
Yeah.
and then
Oh,
they have another
Juliet.
one
Yeah. So good.
And now they've got.
in the Voltaire studio.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, right.
It's a really great site, that one. I
Yeah.
like that a lot. Yeah, but a lot of the other stuff in Clapham is geared more towards the sort of casual stuff.
Right,
yeah.
yeah.
Let's finish off with your go-to locations. And Adam, you've been absolutely wonderful. Thank you. We could listen to you for hours and hours. You're just amazing. But what about your go-to weeknight restaurant? If you're not working, you've got the night off. Nothing fancy, but somewhere nice.
We
Wait.
probably go to the Wolseley quite a lot.
Yeah.
Actually,
Nothing wrong with that.
I really like the Wolseley. They look after us really well. It's, just sometimes you want to go to a restaurant and just not think about it and just walk in and I want to spend. Vic and I try to grab one dinner a week because life is hectic as hell, right?
Yeah.
And actually, we just want to spend one night together where we can just like sit in the corner, drink a great bottle of wine,
Yeah.
and just. I don't want to think about the food.
Yeah.
I just want the food to deliver a sense of satisfaction, comfort and pleasure. And there's a number of restaurants like that, and the Wolsey stands out really for me, just as a restaurant that just delivers all those things I want, really. But I mean, I don't tend to eat in the same restaurant all the time. I'm not a regular anywhere or anything like that. I like to sort of see what else is out there, but equally, sometimes I'm not going out for any of that reason. I'm going out literally just to enjoy the pleasure of hospitality and sitting in a corner with a great bottle of wine and talking to my wife.
What about a special supper? Maybe your daughter's 18th. Maybe you're sort of redoing the vows with your wonderful wife. Where are you celebrating?
Probably the River Cafe, to be honest. Yeah, we go there for special stuff generally.
Go to pub?
I don't really go to pubs, but what?
Well, you're in the triangle of fucking, the sun.
I know, but I don't really.
Got the bob and
I just
down,
don't
that's a
really
nice
drink
pub.
with the team anymore.
No.
Not for any reason. Just because we have different lives. But do you know what's interesting about pubs is that watching the incredible Devonshire and what's happened with that and how they've done that, and totally in awe of that. They're incredible, and I have been there, and it's brilliant, obviously. But what's been amazing is before, sort of pre-Devonshire, all you would read about is sort of how many pubs are closing, closing, and it is quite a stark, sort of worrying fact to read that stuff. Then you go to Devonshire and you realise that actually these pubs are closing because they're shit.
Yeah.
And actually, when it's done well, they're bloody brilliant.
Yeah, they're thriving.
So actually, it was quite a wake-up call.
Yeah,
Maybe I'm stating the bleeding obvious, but it was quite interesting. But I don't generally go to pubs that much now.
Okay. What about your favourite hidden gem? Somewhere not many.
Do you know?
people
I'll tell you a restaurant you won't have heard of that I loved. I went there and I totally blew me away. It's called Takahashi, and it's in Merton.
Okay.
Stay with me.
Remember?
So
It's
Merton, like
about
beyond Tooting, is that
10
Merton?
Yeah.
Okay, right, yeah.
Yeah, it's like
End of the line.
12 quid
Oh
Uber
my.
from where I live.
Yeah.
and it is a Japanese restaurant, very true to the sense of that as well. It's like 10 covers, and you have to prepay. It's got got it all going on.
Yeah. Cash?
No, no, it's money. Huh?
Right, yeah.
It's expensive.
Yeah.
So is it
And rightly
is it
so, the
like
product is
omakase, like
amazing.
kind of
Exactly.
that kind of style?
It's omakase
Yeah.
style, and I just thought the food was brilliant, and this hospitality was brilliant. I loved it.
That's
I
a
really,
great
really
food.
loved it, and I would go back again and again.
How long's it been there? Do you know? Is it sort of a new?
I think it's been there a little. I don't know.
No,
Wouldn't
okay.
want to quote that.
No.
but we went there this year sometime.
Nice.
But you prepay, and it's a little bit tricky to get a booking and stuff like that. But I just thought it was a total, like, a customer recommended it, and then another customer said to me.
Yeah,
So I thought, okay, I need to
So
try
try
this.
it,
So I tried it and went with mild expectation, but actually walked out just thinking, that was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
Well,
The food was
Get to
brilliant.
Merton,
need to get
that's
down
amazing.
there. And what about your dream long weekend getaway? It's the final question, apart from your 3 courses.
Oh, UK or?
Wherever
Anywhere
you
in the world you want to go for a foodie weekend. You and
Okay.
the wife.
Foodie weekend has to be San Sebastian, which is a bit cliche, I know, but San Sebastian I love. I go there probably once a year with either my daughter, my son, or my wife. Only one person though. Love
Really?
San Sebastian.
Only works as a two.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. Flying to Bilbao and then get the bus thing down to San Sebastian and then check in, go have some ham and beer and then go back and just do the whole rounds. And
Yeah.
I've got a bit of a cheat sheet from it from a few great people that have given me that. So hit the right spots and then go for a run in the morning up to the big St Christopher at the top of the hill, which is fantastic, and a little swim in the sea, and get the bus back. I just think San Sebastian is, although it's quite touristy, it is still amazing
Worth
food.
it.
And if it was UK based, Vic and I tried to go to Heckfield Place once a year
Nice.
as an absolute treat to ourselves. But
That is a treat. Yeah.
I love Heckfield Place.
Yeah.
I just think the way that they do what they do, it just transports you to a whole nother world.
Extraordinary.
Have lunch on the way down, and what we tried to do, have lunch on the way down, arrive, and then actually go to the bar and have a really nice bottle of wine and just have some soup or something in the bar, not have a whole dinner, and then just enjoy the place. I love Heckfield. I think it's brilliant.
Nice.
But that's a dream getaway for a weekend for me.
Well, Adam, you've been absolutely incredible. It's been amazing to hear all your wonderful stories. Thank you so much for coming in. We're just going to finish off with your go-to 3-course meal. If you could have 3 courses once more.
No problem. I would say I'm very easy to please, actually. A very good prawn cocktail, grilled Dover sole, fries, buttered spinach, and then a rum barber. Thanks very much.
Rum Barber.
Well, Adam Byatt, thank you so much. Maybe we
Barber.
should call you Adam Barber.
I like that.
I mean, yeah, that
It
kind
might
of works
stay.
even better. Adam, thank you so much for coming in. That's
pleasure.
absolutely incredible.
Thanks for
and
having me,
good
son.
luck with everything at Trinity. And yeah, we'll be down to sample some of the goods very soon.
100%.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Adam.
Thank you, mate.
Cool. Easy.